There are moments when words fall short of what the heart already knows. When I think about what truly binds us, not titles, not ceremonies, not crowns or duties, it always comes back to something simpler, quieter, and infinitely stronger. It is the space that exists between one heartbeat and the next. It is the invisible thread that connects one soul to another, one promise to another, one act of love to another. And in that space, in that silence, I have come to understand what connection truly means. From the outside, people often see what is formal, what is prepared, what is expected. They see gestures shaped by tradition and voices guided by responsibility. But behind every public step, there is something deeply personal, a connection that runs beneath the surface of it all. When I stand beside those I love, when I walk beside my sister, when I serve beside those who share this sense of purpose, I feel that connection not as a weight, but as a rhythm. It moves quietly but firmly through every moment, reminding me that duty without connection is hollow, and connection without purpose is fleeting. Titles can separate, they can define roles, mark hierarchies, and build expectations that sometimes feel too heavy to hold. Yet connection has a different kind of strength. It unites where formality divides. It listens where rank speaks, and it heals where misunderstanding lingers. I have learned that the most meaningful gestures are not always the ones that are seen, but those that are felt. The look of reassurance across a crowded room, the quiet understanding shared without words, the calm presence that says, "I'm here." Those are the moments where connection transcends every boundary, where the heart leads, not the crown. There are days when I stand in rooms filled with history, where portraits of those who came before me seem to watch with both pride and expectation. And I think about what they might tell me. That honor does not come from a title, but from how you carry it. That respect is not demanded, but earned through humility, empathy, and consistency. In those moments, I understand that to be connected to others, to truly serve, is to listen, not just to the words people speak, but to the quiet hopes that they hold. Connection beyond title means understanding that we are all shaped by the same currents of emotion: fear, love, uncertainty, and courage. It means recognizing that leadership is not about standing above, but about walking beside. It means seeing that even in the spaces where distance seems to exist, between generations, between roles, between lives, we are joined by the pulse of something greater than ourselves. That pulse reminds us that we belong to one another, that we are never as separate as we sometimes imagine. I have felt this most profoundly in moments of simplicity, in laughter shared with my sister when we forget, for a while, the weight of our paths, in the quiet conversations with those who have served long before me, who speak not of duty, but of devotion, in the eyes of people who believe that the future can be shaped by kindness. These are the places where I find connection, not in grandeur, but in grace. And every time I feel it, I am reminded that my title is not a wall, it is a window through which I can see and serve more clearly. When we connect without titles, we see each other as we truly are human. We understand that no heart beats more nobly than another, and no dream belongs more rightly to one person than to all. The beauty of life lies in this shared rhythm, the understanding that we move together, that our steps echo one another's, that compassion and trust are what give meaning to all that we do. Sometimes, people imagine that those who live within the boundaries of tradition are distant, unreachable, untouched by the ordinary, but connection erases that illusion. The truth is that the same emotions that touch every life touch ours too. the same moments of uncertainty, of joy, of longing for belonging. And it is through acknowledging that sameness that true connection is formed. That is how we learn to lead with empathy, to speak with sincerity, to act with purpose. I have always believed that service begins with understanding. To understand others, you must first allow yourself to feel what they feel. To be open enough to hear, to observe, to walk quietly beside them. It is there, in that closeness, that titles disappear and humanity remains. It is there that one realizes that to serve is not to be separate, but to be deeply intertwined with the lives of others. The connection beyond title is not a rejection of identity. It is a deepening of it. It is recognizing that being entrusted with responsibility is not about being elevated, but about being grounded. It is about standing firm in who you are while remaining open to who others are. It is about understanding that the meaning of a role lies not in being seen, but in what you give, in the calm strength that others can rely upon. And perhaps, most importantly, connection beyond title is a promise. A promise to never let the walls of formality grow taller than the bridges of understanding. It is the quiet assurance that in the end, what defines us is not what we are called, but how we connect, how we care, and how we continue to listen even when the world grows loud. In the distance between heartbeats, there is a choice. We can let that space fill with silence, or we can let it carry the echo of understanding. We can use it to separate, or we can use it to unite. I choose to believe that the purpose of all that we do, the ceremonies, the commitments, the traditions, is to bring hearts closer together, not to keep them apart. So when I speak of connection beyond title, I am speaking of something deeply personal and deeply hopeful. I am speaking of the belief that every person, regardless of role or circumstance, carries within them a rhythm that contributes to the harmony of something greater. When those rhythms align, when hearts beat not in competition, but in collaboration, something extraordinary happens. We begin to move as one. And in that unity, in that shared heartbeat, there is not just belonging but strength. It is what sustains us when the world feels uncertain. It is what reminds us that our value does not come from what we are given, but from what we give. It is what ensures that no distance, no difference, no title will ever truly divide us. Connection beyond title is not the absence of duty, it is the essence of it. It is love turned into action, empathy turned into leadership, and understanding turned into legacy. It is the quiet strength that endures when everything else fades. And as long as that rhythm continues, as long as one heart listens for the other, there will always be a way forward together, beyond the boundaries of name or role, into the shared light of humanity. There is a kind of silence that comes before every act of responsibility, a stillness where intention gathers before becoming action. In that silence, I have often found myself reflecting on what it truly means to serve. It is not about standing higher, speaking louder, or being seen more clearly. It is about listening deeply, understanding quietly, and offering oneself with honesty. Service, I have learned, is not defined by the weight of a title or the visibility of a role, but by the steadiness of one's purpose and the sincerity of one's heart. Responsibility begins not when others expect something of you, but when you expect something greater of yourself. It is a decision made each day to show up with integrity, to fulfill promises even when no one is watching, to act not for praise, but for principle. There are moments when duty can feel like a distant mountain, something immense and unmovable. Yet, when approached with humility, it becomes a path. One step at a time, one small gesture leading quietly to another. From a young age, I have felt the meaning of service grow within me, shaped not only by words but by example. I have watched those around me live with dignity, guided by a sense that to serve is to care, and to carry responsibility is to protect what is shared. That sense of quiet guardianship is not a burden, but a calling, one that asks for constancy, for empathy, and for the courage to place the collective good before the comfort of self. To serve others is to be present, to listen to the concerns that are sometimes unspoken, to see the people who are often unseen, and to remind oneself that leadership begins not with authority, but with understanding. I have come to realize that service is less about what one gives and more about how one gives. It is the quality of attention, the depth of sincerity, the willingness to act even when recognition does not follow. True service is not transactional, it is transformative. It changes both the giver and the receiver, shaping them into reflections of each other's humanity. Responsibility, in its truest form, is not an external weight, but an internal compass. It points you toward what is right, even when the way is uncertain. It reminds you that integrity is not something to be displayed, but something to be lived. There are days when responsibility feels quiet and solitary. Moments when the choices that must be made are not celebrated but simply necessary. Yet those moments often hold the greatest meaning, because they prove that doing what is right matters more than doing what is easy. Service also carries with it an understanding of time, that what we do today echoes far beyond the moment in which it is done. Every gesture of kindness, every decision rooted in care, contributes to something lasting. In this sense, service is not only an act, it is a legacy. It connects generations, linking what was built before us with what will come after. When I think about that, I feel the responsibility not as pressure, but as privilege. The chance to continue what others began, to protect what others trusted, and to shape what others will inherit. It is natural to feel the weight of responsibility at times, especially when the path ahead seems filled with expectations. But within that weight lies meaning. Responsibility teaches discipline, not as a restraint, but as freedom to live with purpose. It teaches patience, to understand that change takes time, and that steadfastness is its own quiet strength. And it teaches gratitude, to see service not as an obligation, but as a gift, the opportunity to contribute, to uplift, to belong to something greater than oneself. There is also a deeply personal side to service. It is not only about institutions or traditions. It is about the daily choice to act with kindness, to remain truthful, and to bring light to others, even in small ways. Every person, no matter where they stand, has the capacity to serve. Whether through a word of comfort, a moment of listening, or a gesture of help, service is the thread that weaves communities together. It reminds us that strength is not found in isolation, but in unity, in the shared effort to care, to build, and to believe in one another. In a world that often celebrates visibility, service asks for humility. It does not seek applause but meaning. It demands that we hold ourselves to standards that are not measured by comparison, but by conscience. To act responsibly is to be guided not by what is popular, but by what is right. And in moments of uncertainty, responsibility becomes a light, a reminder that even a single act, if done with sincerity, can restore faith, trust, and hope. There are times when I have looked at the future and felt its vastness. How many lives, how many choices, how many stories it contains. And yet, in that vastness, I have also felt clarity, because service gives direction to that expanse. It turns uncertainty into purpose. It reminds me that no matter how much changes, the values that sustain us, respect, compassion, responsibility, remain constant. They are the quiet rhythm beneath all the noise, guiding us forward. To serve is also to learn. Every encounter, every challenge, every moment of reflection teaches something about what it means to lead and to follow. Responsibility does not mean having all the answers. It means being willing to seek them with openness and humility. It means recognizing that we are always in the process of becoming. That every act of service, no matter how small, shapes who we are becoming in the eyes of others and within ourselves. When I think of service and responsibility together, I see them as inseparable. One gives meaning to the other. Service without responsibility can lose direction, and responsibility without service can lose heart. Together, they form the foundation of purpose, the balance between action and reflection, between giving and guiding. And so, to serve is not simply to fulfill a duty, it is to live a promise to remain true to one's values, to protect what is entrusted, to uplift those who rely on you. It is a promise to give the best of yourself, even when it is difficult, and to trust that every act of integrity adds to something greater. Responsibility asks for resilience, for patience, for grace under pressure. But it also rewards with peace. The peace that comes from knowing you have done what is right. In the end, service is the quiet heartbeat of every meaningful life. It asks for no recognition, but gives everything it can. It endures beyond applause and outlasts moments of doubt. Responsibility, when carried with humility, turns that heartbeat into a rhythm that others can follow. A rhythm that reminds us all that the purpose of life is not to be admired, but to be of use. As I continue on my own path, I hold close the truth that service is not an end, but a way of being. A way of seeing the world not as separate, but as shared. Every act of care, every choice rooted in responsibility, strengthens that bond. And though the world will always change, the essence of service will remain the same. The steady pulse of dedication, the quiet courage to act, and the unwavering belief that even the smallest act, done with sincerity, has the power to make a lasting difference. Hope is a quiet force. It does not always announce itself with noise or spectacle. Sometimes it begins as a whisper, fragile, uncertain, but persistent. It grows not in the absence of challenge, but in the presence of it. And it is in that quiet, enduring strength that I have come to understand what it means to believe in a shared future. One that we do not inherit by chance, but build together with patience, faith, and purpose. There are moments when the world feels divided, when the distance between hearts seems wider than the distance between continents. In those moments, it is easy to think that hope belongs only to the dreamers, that it is something distant and unreachable. But hope, I have learned, is not an illusion. It is a decision. It is the choice to look at what is uncertain and still move forward, the choice to see light even when the horizon is dim. The choice to keep believing that tomorrow can be better if we choose to make it so. A shared future begins with shared faith. Not necessarily in the same things, but in one another. It grows from the understanding that no one stands alone, that our actions ripple outward in ways we cannot always see. Every gesture of kindness, every word of understanding, every small act of courage becomes a piece of that future, and hope is what binds those pieces together, shaping them into something whole. I often think about the generations who came before us, who faced moments of uncertainty yet never let go of their belief in the power of renewal. They built what we now stand upon, not because it was easy, but because they believed in the worth of their efforts. Because they trusted that those who followed would carry their work forward. That trust is the heartbeat of hope. It is what allows one generation to hand over responsibility to another, confident that the same values of unity, service, and care will continue to guide us. Hope is not naive. It does not deny struggle. It transforms it. It teaches us that difficulty is not an end but a beginning, a space where we can learn, adapt, and grow. I have seen that spirit in people who face challenges with quiet strength, in communities that rebuild with determination, and in the eyes of those who continue to believe in goodness, even when the world tests their faith. These are the moments that remind me that hope is not found in perfection, but in perseverance. A shared future requires that we listen to one another, not just to respond, but to understand. It asks us to look beyond what separates us, and to see the threads that connect us. When we learn to listen, truly listen, we discover that beneath our differences lie the same desires to be seen, to be valued, to live with dignity. It is there, in that recognition of shared humanity, that the foundation for the future begins to form. For me, hope has always been intertwined with service. To serve is to believe in the potential of others. To carry responsibility is to trust in the strength of what we can achieve together. The two cannot be separated, because hope without action fades, and action without hope loses direction. Together they move the world forward, one heart, one effort, one promise at a time. When I think of the future, I do not see it as a distant dream. I see it in the faces of the young, those who are learning, questioning, daring to imagine. I see it in the hands of those who work tirelessly, often without recognition, to make life a little better for someone else. I see it in every act of kindness that happens quietly, without announcement, yet carries within it the power to change everything. That is where hope lives. In the everyday courage of ordinary people who refuse to give up. It is easy to speak of hope when the path is clear. The challenge is to hold it close when the way is uncertain. But that is when it matters most. Because hope is not only what comforts us, it is what guides us. It gives direction when plans fall apart, and it reminds us that even small steps, taken consistently, can lead to something extraordinary. The shared future we all dream of will not arrive in a single moment of triumph. It will be built quietly, piece by piece, through the choices we make and the trust we keep. In my own life, I have found that hope deepens when shared. When we reach out to others, when we believe in their potential as much as our own, hope multiplies. It grows stronger in the presence of connection. And in that way, the future becomes not something to wait for, but something to shape together. Whether it is through education, through understanding, through kindness, or through service, every person has a role in shaping that future. There is a beauty in realizing that hope does not belong to any one person or generation. It is something that flows through all of us, carried forward by those who believe, who act, who build. It connects the past to the present, and the present to what is yet to come. And even when the world changes, as it always will, hope endures, because it lives in the human spirit, in the will to keep trying, to keep loving, to keep believing that what unites us is always stronger than what divides us. I often think of hope as light, not blinding, but gentle. It does not erase darkness, but it helps us find our way through it. It does not demand certainty, but it offers direction. When shared, that light becomes brighter, reaching places that one alone could never reach. And that is the meaning of a shared future. Not a single vision imposed, but many lights joining together to create something luminous and enduring. There will always be moments when doubt tries to take hold, when challenges seem too heavy, when the distance between dreams and reality feels too great. But even then, hope endures. In the resilience of those who stand up again, in the compassion of those who reach out, and in the quiet belief that no effort made in love is ever wasted. Hope reminds us that the future is not a destination waiting at the end of the road, it is the road itself, shaped by every step we take together. And so, I hold faith in what we can build, not alone, but side by side. I believe in the strength that comes from unity, in the wisdom that grows from listening, and in the peace that arises when we choose to see each other as equals in this journey. Hope is the bridge between what is and what can be, and the shared future we seek will always be found in the courage to cross it together. In the end,